So good morning. My name is Terry MacArthur. I'm with the Woodlands Township Environmental Services Department. And this morning we're going to be focusing on starting up your sprinkler system for spring. I know hundreds of township residents turned off their sprinklers last October. The beauty of that is that it made your grass healthier by doing that, as well as saving water. So it's time to get back to our springtime schedule. We're going to have two segments today, one on checking out your system before you turn it on, and one on measuring the output, which is really an important factor. So as we get started, let's take a look at some of the key points we're going to discuss today. And I'll tell you now that I don't normally put this many words into a slide, but these are all pretty important things for you to remember, and I hope that you'll consider either snipping it or take a screenshot or use your phone to take a photo of it so that you have this for easy reference from time to time, because they all matter, especially if you live in the Woodlands Township. So, you know, St. Augustine is a grass that needs to go dormant over the winter months. That's when it grows its roots a lot deeper. If you continue to water during those cooler months, the grass spends all its energy staying green instead of growing roots. So there's more and more evidence that it's really a good idea not to even put that pre-emergent herbicide on your lawn in the fall, and not to add fertilizer or even begin irrigating until late April. So timing is good for us to be taking good care of our lawns right now by getting ready, but not starting irrigation if we can get around it. It's really important, the second point there, to know how much water your system puts out so that you can follow the recommendations that Woodlands Water gives you every week on how much to water. It's based on that network of information that's scientific in nature, counts rainfall, humidity in the atmosphere. Even if you don't live in the Woodlands, it's a great idea to subscribe to get that weekly recommendation on how much to water. I'm going to give you websites, email addresses, and phone numbers at the end of the presentation today, so you'll know how to subscribe to that. If you get your water bill from Woodlands Water, you might need to know that that defined irrigation schedule is enforced. If you fail to water during your assigned time, can you hear me, Steve?
Yes, we can hear you now, Terry. We lost you for a minute there.
Okay, thank you. If you're watering during the day outside your assigned watering times, you can have a surcharge added to your water bill as a penalty, which means that the first time you don't comply, your water bill could see a $50 charge added, but that escalates over time if you continue to water outside your scheduled time. It could result in up to $200 a month being added onto your water bill. So this class today will help you prevent that from happening. And then we referenced the cycle and soak method here, and that's another important thing for our clay gumbo soils, that tends to form a bit of a crust on top as it dries. So by using this method, you get not only better water penetration, better soak into the soil, but it is able to penetrate a lot deeper. If you turn the sprinkler on and just let it run for half an hour, the first several minutes, a significant portion, the water is running right off because it's hit that crusty top. So this method makes it a lot more efficient for you to use that water. So let's jump into today's topics. Checking the system and auditing the output. So Steve Ellison is a resident of the township. He's a Heartwood Chapter Texas Master Naturalist. He has more than a decade's experience operating an automated sprinkler system in our climate. So I know you'll be as interested as I am in knowing what he has to say. So join me in welcoming Steve. Steve?
Yes, thank you, Terry, and good morning to everybody. So, when spring has sprung and the grass is showing the first signs of life, it's time to get your sprinkler system checked out and running, ready for the Texas summer and the battle to keep your grass alive, green and well during the summer months. So in part one of your sprinkler audit, we're going to check out the basic physical integrity and functionality of your system at a very high level. So first things first, you drained and or disassembled your backflow preventer before the winter started, didn't you? Personally, I actually disassembled my backflow preventer the last week of October. I take all the parts out, I clean them, I inspect them for integrity. I've then got the winter to order any replacement parts. And then the first week of April, I reassembled my backflow preventer. At the very least, I hope that you drained your backflow preventer before the recent storms, because if you didn't, then certainly Yuri will have done it for you in a far less elegant manner than you would have done yourself. So when you look at your backflow preventer now, this is a picture of a typical one. It's probably in this situation here. The two test ports are in the open position, which you can see because the screw flats are horizontal in line with the valves. The water outlet is in the open position, and then the water inlet is in the closed position. The valve handle is across the direction of the flow. So the very first thing that you're going to do is take a screwdriver on those little test ports here. They're horizontal at the moment. You turn them 1/4 of a degree. You turn it anti-clockwise to open it up so that you leave the test ports with those slots pointing upwards, which closes the two test ports. Similarly here on the water outlet, you turn that valve 90 degrees to a vertical so that you've now closed the outlet water. The next step is to quickly open the water inlet here. Do that in a smooth but quick motion, and you should hear a thud as the mechanism seals within the backflow preventer. You may see a little bit of water run out the top, and then it will seal. At that point, you've recharged your backflow preventer and it's full of water at the Woodlands water pressure, about 70 psi. Finally, you slowly open the outlet valve. This then allows the water to go to the valves of your sprinkler system. Every zone has got one valve which controls water going to that zone. And that valve is then controlled by an electrical signal from your control panel, which is in your garage or wherever you've got it mounted. So once you've done that, you've now recharged, opened your backflow preventer, and you're ready to switch the system on.
Steve, are you showing your slides? Because we're not seeing them.
I thought I was showing them, Terry, but obviously I am not. As you reminded me, let me try again. Is that coming through now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'm sorry about that, everybody. Just a quick recap. You're going to close the two test ports, which are currently in the open position. You turn the screw vertical to close them. You close the water outlet. You quickly open the water inlet. You'll hear a thud as the mechanism seals, a bit of water dribbles out, and then you slowly open the outlet valve to allow the water to go to the valves of your system. Okay. I have never yet been able to switch on my sprinkler system in the spring and have all of the sprinkler heads operate in exactly the same way as they did in the autumn when I switched the system off. Either a head or a connection has broken or sprung a leak, especially after a winter with a hard freeze, hello, like we've just had. or the sprinkler gremlins have been at work and the heads are no longer in adjustment and don't seem to be spraying how and where they were before. So pick a dry day with no wind and then manually run each sprinkler zone. First of all, just check that each sprinkler head is free to rise. It's coming out freely and the water starts flowing out the top. If the heads are not rising smoothly and easily right at the start, go to each one and clean around the top of the head. You may have a grass stolon grown across there, stopping the head from rising, or you could have some of our native soil, aka clay gumbo, that's actually washed on top and settled and made a cake on top, stopping the head rising. So make sure that each sprinkler head is free to rise. What we're then going to do is to look for leaks and or broken and or blocked sprinkler heads. And then we're going to check each sprinkler head for alignment, pattern or arc, and throw or radius. And we're going to talk about each of these terms a little bit in the next couple of slides. But first, before we get to that, let's go underground and see what can go wrong, where and why before we look for the surface symptoms. And I'm going to switch back to just hopefully a view of myself now. Here is your underground sprinkler pipe. So the water's coming in here, the water up here, we go to the valve, if you remember, behind the valve, you've got the backflow preventer, and behind that, you've got Woodlands water. The water comes down the pipe, it comes to one of these couplings. In the coupling, you have a riser. And on top of the riser, you've got your sprinkler head. Now, this particular one, the ground level is here and the pipe is down here. If you've got this distance, which is about 14 inches, there's good points and bad points out. The good point is, even if you've left water in your sprinkler pipe here, it's not going to freeze because it's so far under the ground. The bad point is that when you do have problems, you've got a lot more digging to do to be able to get down there to fix it. Now, most of the leaks and problems that we see, 9 out of 10 or more are in this area here. It's between the coupling and the riser and the head, or the riser itself can be split, bent, or broken. Not all risers are this height. Some risers are quite short and stubby ones, like this size here, or this is an end riser, and you can see how much shorter this is. This is about 9 inches. Again, the advantage here, you've not as much digging to do if you need to fix anything, but you've got more risk of the pipe freezing because you're closer to the surface. Just as a quick aside, I'm going to point out a couple of handy dandy tools as we go through this that are very cheap tools, very simple tools, but will make your life a lot easier when you come to doing these fixes and repairs. Later on, we're going to talk about having a break. If you've got a broken riser, for instance, and just a little stub of it left, remember this is 8 to 10 inches down in the ground. If this is broken off, particularly if it's broken off down at the coupling, it can be very hard to get out. Get yourself one of these little tools. You drop it down the hole that you've dug, stick it in the top, and it seals on the inside of the riser and allows you to screw it out and remove that riser without struggling with long nose pliers and wrenches and digging an even bigger hole. If you get one of these tools, it comes with 2 fittings, a standard one with a 1/2 inch riser and one for a 3/4 inch riser. So a handy little tool to have around. Okay, let's go back up now. And let's take a look at the surface, what's going on up at the surface. So you've switched your sprinkler system on, you've got it running on manual, and you're looking at all your heads. You've checked that they're all rising. The top picture on the top left there is fairly typical. That's where you've lost a complete connection either between your coupling and the riser and the head, or the riser itself had just broken off. All you've got there basically is an open water flow coming from an open pipe and creating that large fountain that you see there in the top left. The second picture down here, remember that time you had Billy Bob and his wife round for a meal in the evening, and he probably had 1 or 2 ports too many after dinner. He drove back off your drive and his wheels went over a bit of your lawn, and what's happened is he's run over the top of the sprinkler head. The riser has bent, it's either split or at least cracked a little bit at the connection here. So there's still enough water coming out through the head to rise it up, so you see water sprouting out the top, but all this pooling of the water is where the riser's been broken or loosened from the connection down here. The third picture, when you just switch your system on and you immediately see water running down your drive like this, it's bubbling up from the ground. Again, you've probably got a leak down here towards the bottom of the riser connection, and or you've got a broken pipe. But most, as I say, 9 times out of 10, leaks are in this area here. The picture at the bottom right-hand corner there, you've actually got 2 problems there. Again, you've probably got a complete severance between the head and the pipe here, which is the fountain of water you see at the top here. But you also notice you've got a second leakage coming here about 6 inches away from the first. That is probably a break in the pipe. So you've got 2 issues to be looking for there. If you look at that picture in the bottom left-hand corner, that's fairly typical of a sprinkler head that needs cleaning. You can't go far wrong with sprinklers, so don't be afraid to pull things apart. They'll screw back together quite easily. If you need to clean a head like that, here is a rotor. I hope you can see this. If this rotor was blocked, I would simply unscrew the top, pull it out, wash all of this, put it back together again. And then also check the nozzle. This is handy dandy tool number 2. This has got a screwdriver on and also a puller. We'll be seeing this one a little bit later in the presentation as well. If I was to pull this out, I hope you can see that there. There's a little blue nozzle in the end there. You basically have to take the screw out, pop the nozzle out, give that a clean in the cavity there, and then reassemble it. There are different types of sprinklers, and another one that you may find, this is a simple one here. And again, I hope you can see it. This one here, I pull it out. It's got a tendency to spring back in. So I use another handy dandy little tool. All of these are from Rainbow, and that's what I use, but there's other manufacturers as well. Click it around the top. That then holds this in the extended position. You can screw the top off, and if you pull out there, you'll find there's a little filter in there. That may be clogged or blocked up. Give that a good wash and a clean. Wash your head, rinse it in the fresh water under the tap, and then screw it back together. And your sprinkler will probably be putting out the right amount of water one more time. So, once you have replaced any broken sprinkler heads, you've cleaned any blocked or clogged sprinkler heads, and you've fixed any water leaks, it's time to check the alignment, the pattern or the arc, and the throw or the radius of your sprinklers. There's a couple of typical pictures up in the top right-hand corner here. You can see a lot of water going over the driveway / pathway. And down in the bottom left corner here, you can see that the residents are actually watering the township roadways. I can assure you that paths, driveways and roadways are extremely drought tolerant. They only need ambient rainfall throughout the season. So if this is happening in your yard, you're basically wasting our water and your money by putting the water on there. So we need to look at every sprinkler that's been activated in the zone. You take a look at it. Is the water from that head covering the area that you want it to cover and only the area that you want it to cover? And that's what we're going to look at now by these adjustments here, the 3 primary adjustments: alignment, pattern, and throw. Now, I'm going to ask you to use your imagination a little bit here again and come back to me. I am a sprinkler head. I've just come up. My desk in front of me is the lawn that I want to sprinkle. So I see the sprinkler head come up and I see it rotating. It comes to the left edge here and it stopped before the left edge of my desk. That is a hard left that's tied with the body of the sprinkler. It stopped there and now it starts turning to the right. You notice that the sprinkler has now gone past the right edge of my desk and I'm actually watering the floor of my study. And I don't want to be doing that. But first of all, I need to adjust the left alignment. This top will rotate, but only so far reference to the body of the sprinkler. And then that is a hard alignment. So in order to get the left aligned, I watch the sprinkler head coming back. I then get physically hold of the sprinkler. I would dig down around the sprinkler, get hold of the body and turn the sprinkler. So here I'm turning it to the left until the left edge is aligned with the left edge of my desk. I then watch the sprinkler come back across here. Now, unfortunately, it's not going far enough to the right because I've turned the sprinkler body, so I've not got enough arc. If you look on the top of a sprinkler, there are a couple of screw adjustments. Let me see if I can get this a little bit better for you to see. There's 2 screws. There's one at the back and one at the front. The one at the back is the one that adjusts the arc. You'll typically see a plus and a minus. You use your handy dandy little tool or a screwdriver and put it into that screw fitting. This is probably the only gotcha about sprinklers, or where you could do damage, that I referenced earlier on. When you want to increase the arc, you turn the screw to the right, but you only do it while the sprinkler is turning to the right. If you want to decrease the arc, you turn the screwdriver to the left, anti-clockwise, while the sprinkler is turning anti-clockwise. So going back to our example now, I know that I need to increase the arc. The sprinkler, I've got the left edge aligned here. I'm turning to the right. I get my screwdriver, I put it in the back screw, and I turn it clockwise a little bit and let go, and I see where it's going. Unfortunately, my sprinkler is now going past the right edge of my desk. I'm actually watering the floor again. So I need to reduce the arc a little bit. I let the sprinkler come all the way back here. The left alignment has not changed. That is not going to change anymore. I let it come all the way around. I need to turn anti-clockwise. So I've got to let the sprinkler get to its extreme end. And as it starts turning anti-clockwise, I have to give it a little tweak anti-clockwise. Just watch it again. Come to the left edge. That's good. I then come all the way around. I'm now watering to the right edge of the desk, and I'm covering the desk nicely with my arc. The last thing to be looking at now is the throw. You can't see it from where you're sitting, but I can see here that I'm actually watering the back wall of my study. I'm throwing the water, it's going over the desk and it's landing on the back wall. There's another screw on the top here, and that's the one on the front, which is just over the nozzle. Again, take my handy dandy tool, put it in there, and then I can turn this clockwise, will decrease the distance of the water throw. Anti-clockwise will increase the distance of the throw. I can do this whether it's turning left, right, or even if it's stationary. What you're actually doing when you do that, again, if you see the sprinkler there, you can see a little silver screw. That is a screw that I'm turning on the top when I turn the screw here. And that is angling that nozzle either down or up to increase or to decrease the range of the water throw. So you've now adjusted your sprinkler. The left edge is lined up with the left edge of your lawn or the desk. The arc comes over, it's not going beyond the desk, and then it comes all the way through and stops on the right edge. That sprinkler is now set up and it's now being adjusted appropriately. Two things just to bear in mind on that throw that we just talked about. You don't want to adjust it so the throw goes high up and drops down. If it goes too high, then the wind will blow the water away and it will cause a lot of evaporation even before the water falls on the grass. You want to keep that arc as low as you can out of the wind to avoid evaporation and blow away. And the second thing that's important is to make sure that you've got a curtain of water under that spray. You don't just want like a hose pipe, you put your hose pipe up and you end up with a puddle at the far side. You want water dropping along the whole arc of that sprinkler. And you can see that here on the you see the spray, the curtain of water is dropping all the way from where the sprinkler starts all the way to the end. So you're getting nice coverage over.
Steve,
yes?
You're not sharing again.
Oh, you're kidding. I thought I was. Where did it stop sharing, Terry? Because I was seeing it at one time. Terry?
There you go. That's where advance one. No, advance one. Okay, this is where we did not see this slide.
Huh.
So from here on, we need to see your slides.
All right. Well, you're lucky. I've just given the demonstration. So I'm just going to quickly cover the points here. Every sprinkler head is designed slightly differently. So check online for the actual instructions. But again, just to recap, there are three basic adjustments that you're going to make. You're going to adjust the left alignment, which is physically aligned with the body of the sprinkler. You're going to adjust the pattern or the arc, which is the variable right-hand edge of the sprinkler. And then you're going to adjust the throw or the radius, how far the water goes. And those three will adjust where the water drops in front of each of the sprinklers to make sure that the water is going where you want it and only where you want it. And then this last slide here just showed you the curtain of water dropping underneath each of the sprinklers. You've got a curtain of water dropping, so the grass is getting water across the whole length of the arc there. So that's the hard work of the sprinkler audit. You've checked that all the heads are rising. You check that each head is putting water just where you want it. The next question, of course, is how much water should you be putting out there and how do you measure that? And that's going to be the subject of part 2 of the presentation, which Sarah's going to cover for us now. Sarah?
Okay, great information, Steve. There you go. So let's find out how to measure your output. Sarah Freeman is another township resident. She's also a Heartwood chapter Texas master naturalist, and she has created a simple guide for us to learn how to measure your sprinkler system's output. So join me in welcoming Sarah.
I'm just sharing my screen here. And there you go. Excellent. Good morning, and thank you, Terry, for that introduction. Let me just move this. Okay, if you have a recommendation to irrigate your lawn, whether it's for 1 inch of water or a ½ inch of water, it's a good idea to know how long you'll need to run your sprinklers for in each zone. The aim of this part of the session is to help you work out how long you'll need to run your sprinkler for to put out roughly ½ inch of water at a time, which means you can easily split your irrigation sessions over the 2 defined irrigation days if necessary. This allows for any changes in the weather or rainfall and would also prevent any over or underwatering on your lawn. So to work out this time, there's a really simple method that we can use, and it can be carried out once you've completed the maintenance check that Steve talked about in his section, and you don't need any specialist equipment at all. So what will I need? Okay, simply, you need access to your sprinklers controllers, 6 or more clean and empty tuna or cat food cans, a permanent marker, and a pen, because you'll need to take some notes, and a ruler. Throughout this audit, you will need to take some notes. So like you can grab a pen, paper, even take notes on your phone. That'll be perfect. Okay. So once you've eaten some tuna, fed some local cats, fed your neighbor's cat, and had enough cans, we gather everything else we need, and we can move to the first step of the audit. A quick side note on this one is if you would like to see how much your sprinkler system will output during this time, you can take a meter reading if you know where your water meter is. You can, and then before you set your sprinklers going, and then again at the end. And this will give you a rough idea of how much water you're using when you're using your sprinkler system as well. I mean, I'm on a corner plot, so I know that my sprinkler system will take up I'll use a lot of water. So once you've gathered all your equipment, it helps to know which zones are which in your yard, as you'll have to set up the cans individually in each zone. You set up the cans individually in each zone and run each zone in turn. So you want to audit each zone, so making sure that you're putting out enough water in each one. And to set this up, you label each can numerically from 1 to 6 or 1 to 8, depending on how many you have, and place them on the lawn in the zone that you're going to check first, making sure there is plenty of space in between them. Socially distance them. When all the cans are in place, the next step in the process is to set the sprinklers running in that zone for 15 minutes. And while they're running, that's a chance to make a cup of coffee, do some weeding, take a seat, relax, read a chapter of your book, and just leave them to it. Just let them run. After the 15 minutes and the sprinklers have stopped running, it's time to take some measurements, and this is where you'll need to make some notes. So we're looking to find out how long it takes to put down 1 inch of water, and we're only measuring the depth in each can, not the volume. So to keep it simple and consistent, we measure each can individually, making sure to take a note of each depth for our calculations and marking which zone they were in. So 1 to 6, zone 1. So these steps are repeated for each zone. And once you have a note of all your measurements, that's when we start making some calculations, and which is the next step in the process. For this, we add up all the measurements for that zone taken earlier and divide by the total number of tuna cans we used, the average. And since we ran our sprinkler systems for 15 minutes, we multiply this number by 4. And this will give us the estimated water that outputs in an hour, and we round that to the nearest ½ inch. From here, we can work out how long it takes to irrigate a ½ inch of water in each zone, which is normally what if you were asked to do the full inch of irrigation in a week, that's normally, you could split that over your 2 days. So for example, and this is a purely hypothetical situation, our average gave us 3/4 inch in 15 minutes. You would multiply that by 4, which gives us our 3 inches of water in an hour. And to work out how long you'll need to set your timer for your ½ inch, you would divide by 60 minutes. You would divide 60 minutes by 6, which is the amount of tuna can. Divide 60 minutes by 6, giving you 10 minutes. Sorry, I got tuna cans mixed up with ½ inches. This will be the number that we could use to set our sprinkler systems for. So, let me just go back, sorry. So this is the number we use to set the timers for in each zone in our irrigation system for when we need to run it. Before we set the timers though, in each of our zones on our controllers, there's a few more things to remember. First, you can overwater your lawn as well as underwater it. So we need to also take into account the weekly rainfall, as mentioned by Terry earlier when she mentioned the emails from Woodlands Water. And you can do this with using the emails from Woodlands Water, but you can also use a rain gauge to measure the actual rainfall around. Sorry, I'm getting all mixed up here. You can sign up for the weekly irrigation email sent out by Woodlands Water, leave your sprinklers off unless you need to run them that week. If you do run your irrigation system, please remember to use the defined irrigation schedule as well as the cycle and soak method. We should also note that St. Augustine goes dormant in the winter, turning brown, and therefore rarely needs to be watered between the months of October and April. So now we've covered the tuna can audit and provided some information on watering your lawn. We've come to the end of this very brief training session here. Before we go though, we'd like to ask one more thing of you, which is to try this out for yourself. See if you can reduce the time you're running your sprinkler systems throughout the year. And once you've completed this for your own lawn, please pass on the message to a couple of your neighbors to educate and help them also use their sprinklers only when necessary, and in the long run, get a healthier lawn. Thank you for taking the time to join me in this section, and I will now hand it back to Terry.
Okay, so the beauty of using cans like the tuna cans, you can use rain gauges, you could use other things, but they're easy to acquire. You don't have to purchase a lot of stuff. And by putting half a dozen or so out scattered in the zone you're measuring, it's a pretty simple measure an average way to end up knowing in a 15-minute period how much water your sprinkler system puts out. Then the calculations that follow are up to you for arriving at how to set your timer and your controller to put out the correct amount of water needed. That's when you also then go back to the recommendations from Woodlands Water or your own calculations based on what you've measured in the way of rainfall. So yes, but of course you would be doing this during the day when you're checking your sprinkler heads, as Steve described. You're probably talking about a 15-minute period or so, but you're going to be out there in the yard, obviously watching and supervising what's going on in your yard. So this doesn't count as watering your yard outside the defined irrigation system. The same thing goes with measuring the output that Sarah described. That's going to be a separate 15-minute or so process, but you're in the yard. So during the daytime, nobody's going to give you grief over having your sprinkler system running. So as far as the distance, you're going to be doing this zone by zone. So those tuna cans are spread out more or less randomly based on where your sprinkler heads are. And I want to just mention that this is also a great way that you can measure the output, even if you're using a hose and a manual sprinkler. You still need to know how long to do that, and you should be using a hose timer connected between your outdoor faucet and your hose so that you know how much that manual sprinkler puts out. So if you're only trying to water half an inch, where in the area that it reaches, you know how long to set your hose timer for. So, Sarah, will you unmute and come back and turn your video back on? We're asking for you to show us that calculation or just explain that calculation again. And Steve, if you'll go ahead and turn on your video and your mic, we have a question for you as well.
Okay, 2 seconds. Let me just get back. I'm going to get it so I can see my own notes on the calculation. Okay, so for the calculation, what it was you take the average of each of the tuna cans for the zone, and you multiply it by, because you've run your sprinklers for 15 minutes, you multiply that to give us by 4, which should give you your sprinkler output in an hour. Round it to the nearest ½ inch, and then so, for example, if it gives you 3 inches and you want to work out how long you need to run for ½ inch, you will divide it by 6, which will give you your ½ inch. So 1 hour divided by 6 will give you 10 minutes. And that would be how long you should run your sprinklers for if you're only wanting to put ½ inch of water on your lawn.
Okay, and Steve, are you there now?
Yes, go ahead.
So they're saying they have a rain sensor that shuts off the system if it's rained, and they're wondering if that's a good way to set for proper irrigation. Is that effective?
Yes, it is. I mean, basically, if I don't have that on my system, but if you've got a rain sensor or something that even ties in online to the weather forecast, I would set my system up to give me 1 inch per week, ½ an inch on the 2 watering days, ¼ inch cycle, a rest time, and then a ¼ inch cycle. So ¼ inch 4 times a week, cycle and soak twice a week. And then if you've then got that input into your controller and it says there's been enough water, it will automatically shut it off for you. So that would work quite effectively. Personally, I wait for the emails to come from Woodlands Water. I look at that. I also look at the weather forecast because nothing's ever 100%. And then I have my system to give me the 1 inch a week, ¼ inch cycle and soak twice a week. And then if there's going to be rain or Woodlands Water says to switch it off, I'd literally turn my controller onto the off position for the next watering day and then turn it back on again after that. But automatic inputs are also good. They can also work just as well.
So Steve, you talked about setting sprinkler heads so that there's water falling over the entire length of the arc from each sprinkler head. Would you say that if it's correctly set that way, that when we're doing the calculations Sarah has described, the best place to put those tuna cans is not all out at the very end where the end of the sprinkler arc is, but all along and all throughout the zone, so that all the sprinkler heads are contributing to the measurements.
Absolutely. You just socially distance your tuna cans across the lawn, space them out in a completely random ad hoc manner, probably not even at the extreme end, just sort of throughout the whole area of the lawn, and then take the average that way. Obviously, the more cans you've got over a given area, the better the measurement you're going to be getting.
And certainly, as I said, you can use lots of other things to make these measurements. It's these are small cans that unless you have an issue, you're not going to overfill during a 15-minute period. But the key here is something shallow is better, and make sure that whatever you use has straight sides, so that when you measure, you're making a correct depth measurement, not something with sloping sides. So the question came in about whether this only applies to grass, and for the purpose of our presentation today, the short answer is yes, because we hope that you will consider adding drip irrigation into flower beds so that you're not putting water on the leaves of your plants, but rather you're putting the water on the soil near the root system, which is what most plants prefer. And your controller is set by zone, and you would have drip in a zone that covers those flower beds. But since St. Augustine grass is so water use intensive, the purpose of this today is to talk about ways to reduce wasting water, overwatering your grass, which is a truly common problem. And just to reiterate one more time, St. Augustine grass is a warm weather grass. It does not need water during the winter, the cooler months, because it's actually less healthy come spring if you do water it. It doesn't have a chance to grow its roots during the winter.
Terry,
Yes.
I would just add, I mean, if you do have beds and you are still using sprinklers, particularly using these smaller size sprinklers, the physical integrity and checks and adjustments that I've just described are still equally applicable on those beds if that's the option you've got available to you. You don't want to be watering the path at the side of the bed. You can adjust your sprinkler heads again to make sure you're getting water just over the beds.
So that was the question I was going to ask, is if their sprinkler heads do currently cover flower beds, that would be the solution, is to adjust those sprinkler heads that are watering into your landscape beds, as Steve has described. So, yes.
Just the quicker side, I mean, typically the sprinklers that you have on the beds are these smaller ones. And instead of having a screw adjustment on top, you'll often find them, let me see if I can get it on here, where there's a collar at the top and you turn the collar to adjust the arc. So instead of a screw, you've got a physical collar that you turn on some of these. So it's just a different adjustment mechanism. As I said previously, check online, get the adjustment procedure from the manual that's online for each of your sprinkler types. Okay,
let me take up where I left off here a moment ago and let you know that if you live in a part of the township that's in Harris County, well, I said I was going to. Let me try it one more time. You get your water, if you're in the part of the township served that's in Harris County, you're served by Municipal District Services. That's SMUD 386. They put out this brochure about doing a sprinkler self-system audit. It has some recommendations, although they don't have a true defined irrigation schedule. They do have some recommendations. They offer a chart about what percentage you should be reducing your water during certain times of year. Their measurement scheme is a little bit different, but quite similar. If you want to have this brochure and you cannot find it on the Municipal District Services website, then send me an email and I will send you the form electronically. So if you have further questions today, you're welcome to send me an email, ask those questions. I'll try to get with Sarah and Steve to reply to you. If you want information about other trainings or volunteering opportunities, you can contact me, or you can go to our Environmental Services webpage, which I show here as the Woodlands Township /environment. If you want to contact the department by email, there's an email or there's a phone number. Simply dial that number and ask for Environmental Services. If you want to get that weekly watering recommendation or rebate information or the group that Woodlands Water uses for sprinkler system checks, go directly to the woodlandswater.org website. When you scroll all the way to the bottom of the screen of that front page of their website, there's a place to enter your email to get updates. Put your email address in there, a window pops up, ask for a little bit of information. Even if you are not a Woodlands Township resident, you can get that weekly update from Woodlands Water. And there's a question about which mud you're in. It doesn't matter if you don't know. The very bottom one is, I don't live in the township, but I want your information anyway. You can simply check that box if you want and then submit the request. And you'll start getting those emails weekly. So I'll leave this here for just a minute in case you have more questions. Let me see, do we have any more chats? Well, I can't see the chat box. Steve, can you check if there's any more questions?
I have a question from someone, okay. And it's, I have a drip system in my flower beds. How do I set up the timing and frequency of running this system? Difficult to know how much water is being applied. Too much or not enough?
Well, that would be a really good question to address with some of our drip specialists, especially the ones who we had on last weekend for a presentation. If you will send that question to me, I'll forward it to some of those drip specialists and ask them to contact you directly.
Terry, in the meantime, I mean, one procedure you can do if you've got a drip system like that and you want to know how much water you're doing, switch off, make sure that all the water's switched off in the house, no one's using it. Go to your water meter at the road, you'll lift the cap up, take a reading, start the drip system running for 15 minutes, stop it, take another reading at your meter, and you know how many gallons of water you've actually put onto that flower bed in that 15 minutes. And from that, you can convert that to how many inches if you want, but that may not be relevant if it's just flowers. You know, if you need a half a gallon or a quarter of a gallon for each plant, then you'll be able to get some idea of how much water is coming out of your drip system.
Okay, that's a good idea. You can also ask questions about drip. The master gardeners were the ones who put on the session for us last weekend on drip irrigation. And I know they have a hotline for the AgriLife office in Conroe. I don't have that at my fingertips, but if you can look up the AgriLife office on Airport Road in Conroe, you can call them and ask for a master gardener to answer that drip question, but specify you want to talk to a drip specialist. So I mentioned the Wise Guys, their service of Woodlands Water, and it's a one visit free per life option. They won't come out every year and check your system for you, but they will come out one time from Woodlands Water to check your system for you for free. But you can make your own appointment when you go onto that woodlandswater.org website. As you're scrolling down to get to the bottom to enter your email, you'll see there are many other options of things you can check there. And there's a big box that says Wise Guys, and when you click on it, it tells you what the program is, and right there you can set your own appointment. Other things you'll find on that website are like, for example, rebate information. If you click on rebates, it shows you the list of things that are water-saving appliances, devices. Woodlands Water will rebate 50% of what you spend on those items up to $150. Now, that $150 is also a lifetime rebate from Woodlands Water, but you don't have to do it all at once. One of the things you can get rebates for is rain barrels. You can buy those rain barrels through another partner organization of ours, the Woodlands Green. So you saw their slide earlier. You can go to thewoodlandsgreen.org, order a rain barrel. They sell them at the discounted price of $85. And then you submit your receipt to Woodlands Water, and you get $42.50 back on your water bill. But you can also get rebates for native plants. If you click on the native plants rebate, you can then access a list of dozens and dozens of trees, shrubs, and plants that qualify with Woodlands Water to receive a rebate if you purchase them to plant in your yard as water-saving devices. So a lot of good information on that website as well. Steve, we're asking if you would either just quickly show us or name those various tools you showed.
Yeah, so I was afraid somebody would ask me what the name is. That's why I just call them handy dandy tools. I don't know what the name is, but let me just quickly cover them again. This is a clip for holding up the neck of the sprinkler head.
Hold it up. Hold it up high. Hold it up high.
Can you see? Can you
Yes.
see that there?
Yes.
So this is actually Rainbird. If you go to any of the big box stores, you'll find these. This is a pulling tool. This consists of a screwdriver at the end and a puller that you can use to pull up the sprinkler head. And then the final one is this one here that you can easily use to back out broken sprinkler risers. I wish I'd found these tools years ago. I struggled for years without these tools, but these are a few dollars each, and they just make life so much easier. So just pop down to Home Depot, Lowe's, or just online. I think I picked these up from Amazon.
Another one of our partners who stocks a full line of sprinkler system and especially drip parts is the Allspice Ace Hardware that's in Sterling Ridge. So if you're near there, they have a great selection of tools and parts too. So Woodlands Water Agency is the website I keep mentioning over and over again to get weekly watering recommendations, to get rebates. If you get your water bill from Woodlands Water, you are eligible for those rebates. And their website is simply woodlandswater.org. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat box, and we are pushing our 11 o'clock end time. Let's see, just so you'll know, Sarah and Steve, we've had some thank you for the workshop remarks. Several people have commented that they enjoyed it. I hope you'll have found it informative, learned a few things, and are better water heroes for me in the future. So watch for more news. Go to our environmental services webpage on the Township website. There are lots of things coming up. Green Up, the litter pickup annually starts next Saturday morning, so you might want to get involved in that. We're doing a training. It's going to be this same Zoom format on the 27th on invasive species. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the worst culprits of invasives here in the township. But meantime, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Steve Ellison and Sarah Freeman. Contact me by email if you have a question. Someone's quickly asking about rebate program with MUD 386. That's not a township decision. That would be up to MUD 386 to offer rebates. So if you get your if you live in the Harris County part of the township and you get your water bill from Municipal District Services or MUD 386, go directly to them and tell them you want a rebate program. They're the ones who would do that. So let's see here. I'm not seeing any more questions. Someone commented on the accents of our two presenters. Well, you know, we don't discriminate against people with accents, so we enjoyed having them today too. Thank you all for joining us.